What is up, my peeps? I'm going to do another Fine Art Friday. What we're going to do is, I have this set of Milky Way pictures. Let me see, I have a whole bunch here. I just found this one. My buddy Jason and I went to, this is out towards Fall Creek, Oregon. Just a cool bridge. It's called Pangra Bridge. And what I did here is, I actually had the camera set up probably on like a 30-second exposure, and I actually just we had a flashlight that we just put inside this bridge just to get some light in here. So you'll notice if you are using Lightroom or if you're using Adobe Camera Raw like what I use, basically the same program, but you'll notice all these black areas that are truly black. The blue that's showing up here is the data that's being lost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some general global adjustments. So maybe I'm going to bring the exposure up a little bit, maybe one stop. Might be too much, we'll see. You can always take it back down. Okay, so that's one stop. Got rid of most of the blue there, and this red starts to look kind of pink. We'll go back in and adjust that. So let's go to shadows. Pull those shadows. There we go. Now you'll see that the blue is just barely there. It's okay to have a little bit there. It means you've taken it just to the point where blacks are black and everything else falls from there. So I'm going to go to whites too, and that's just going to make the stars really pop. In your profile, under to the right here, you'll see profile. By stock, it's like Adobe Color usually. You can choose it to go to landscape, which is what I'd probably do in this particular case, or portraits. Not much different than Adobe Color or Adobe Standard. They're pretty close. Adobe Vivid and landscapes are pretty similar. Since this is a landscape, maybe Vivid this time. I'm gonna go Vivid. Okay, normally if it's just a landscape, I would do Adobe Landscape. Alright, so we've got that, and what we're going to do, zoom in on these images. These stars are not as crispy as I wanted, but you're not seeing the star trails, so that's cool. We have a little bit of clipping on the edges, so let's go start masking this stuff off. So I'm just going to click on background, see what it thinks is the background. It actually thinks everything's the background, which is okay. I'm going to put the shadows up just a little bit. Take these highlights down just a smidgen. And the reason why is you'll see the color in the Milky Way here. We want to start bringing that back. So bring those highlights down a little bit. Probably won't mess with the contrast. It's a little too extreme. And the total loss of everything. Alright. So that's that. I really like the contrast between the red flashlight that we put inside this covered bridge and then the darkness over here. So that's really nice. The other thing that I would do at this point is I'd go to cropping. It's going to be a pretty standard art print. We're going to do 8 by 10. This is where you just decide kind of what leads your eye. I mean, really, I think the Milky Way is the most important thing. So, and this tree right here, we don't want to cut off. So, and push it to the top. We got this nice leading line of these railings that go in here. I think that's good. So, click on that. Just use my ugly mug here. This is right. A lot of times, people would be like, "Okay, there we go, we're done." This is what's going to make the difference between being a fine artist and a person that takes snapshots. So what you're going to want to do from here is we're going to go to selected mask, and I'm going to just actually invert this one. So duplicate and invert mask. That's going to get this barn here. I'm going to bring the exposure up on that just Alright, there we go. So I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit. I'm going to bring the shadows up just a little bit. Highlights are probably a little hot because the flashlight on a 30-second exposure is bright. Imagine the stars are not so bright, and in 30 seconds you got to get those. Anything else is just going to be kind of a hot spot, so we're just going to bring the exposure down. We'll leave that up, but we'll keep the highlights. You'll notice right here, just get into where they're just not so hot that it takes away from most of the image. You can adjust the color here. If you go cooler, it's gonna, that bar, or the bridge, sorry, is gonna match the sky a little bit. If you warm it up, it's gonna contrast with the sky. I'm actually gonna cool it down because I think it, cooler tones seem like it's dark and moody, and I don't think I'm going to adjust the tone at all. Just get that zoom in to where this tone feels the same. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one more time. Invert, and I'm actually going to invert that. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract. And we're going to just use like let's do a linear gradient here. And basically, what we're going to do is now we're going to kind of bring the exposure down just a touch in that sky. We're going to bring those whites up further. I'm actually going to bring in a little bit of color here, so I'm going to change the tint. I'm going to get a little bit of this color in there. Cool the sky down just a bit, somewhat there. And saturation's fine. Add a little bit of clarity to those stars. And some dehaze. And it's important to note that the dehaze you don't want to go overboard with, because that's just a contrast slider basically. I'm going to actually add haze into this once we're done. So, detail there. Now I'm going to create one more mask. We're going to do a radial gradient, and we're going to just focus right here. I'm going to warm. I'm going to cool that down because the red's so hot. You don't notice. Turn that off. On. Nothing crazy. So I'm going to go down to the dehaze. We're going to do a negative dehaze. What that does is it kind of adds a little bit of glow. And I'll probably, normally I would, like if I was doing something else, I might take the clarity and the texture down. But I think the structure inside this building is really nice, so we'll go ahead. Leave that. I'm going to go up and do one more radial gradient. And this is the quick way to do this. Just going to put right over that. You could do, which I'll just go ahead and do instead, you could go and get your brush and do the same thing. Oops. So you could do a brush. And so bear with me. Grab a brush and here, hold on, take the wrong button. Here you go. Screw whole screen. You could just brush over this, and then what you're going to want to do is I want to take the exposure down just a touch and bring the highlights up. I'm going to try and build that Milky Way back. You start losing it when you adjust the sliders. Some whites. Hold those up. Have someone leave alone. And then I'm going to what am I going to do? Some of them. Just passing here. Sharpness. touch. Very. You'll notice right in here, you're starting to get that Milky Way to show up. I should put a color. I'm going to maybe warm up the center part where we did the brush. You'll notice that just by doing that, this structure is starting to come in. And then I'm going to actually add some of this kind of warm ginger tones in there. Not so much, because it'll look fake really, really quick here. And this is not a fake picture. This is the way it was that night, but just want to make sure that you're doing small increments of the saturation, just a touch. Looking good. Now, I'm going to do one more mask, one more brush, and I'm going to make the brush really large. I'm going to brush into the edge here. I want to just take the exposure down just a smidge, and shadows. You don't want it to look like a vignette. We just want to start getting the Milky Way to pop just a little. Okay, get that. Bring the whites back up. You start losing the stars just a touch if you're not careful. Alright, so there we go. Move face out here. Jump here. Just darken it up. Like I said, I don't want to vignette this at this point. I just want to make sure that this looks kind of real. Because this is pretty much what you would see when you're out there. There's no lights. This light that's in the bridge is me, like I said, with a flashlight in there. If you're just out here, it is pretty dark. So, alright, so that's looking really good. I'm going to do a linear gradient, and exposure down just a bit at the top, just to kind of draw your eyes down a little bit. See how subtle that is. Now it's as before. After, just gets a slight gradient in there. I'm actually going to add another linear gradient down here. Mark this effect, and that's just going to lead your eye right into the bridge and then around to the Milky Way. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Globally look at it here. Start going in. I mean, you could go crazy. I'm just going to let you guys know. You could really work on this Milky Way like I could do. I'm just going to show you how to take a brush, and you could just dab spots here. It's crawling right now, so bear with me. So you can take these spots and we can go up the exposure a little bit. We could warm those up, get some like yellowy tones in there, which sometimes you'll see. I actually like to maybe throw in some greens. But you'll notice that, turn this off and on. See that? So, subtle, you don't want to go crazy, but you can start building these tones, I think going very subtle is the key. Maybe someone there, and And again, a lot of times you got to go back in because you've changed things, and so you bring whites and darks back in there. Good enough. So now we're building those colors. So let's do one more. Do a gradient here. This is going to be a little more global. These other ways. Let's see what we're doing. Someone there. And again, I'm going to bring the exposure up just a touch. Bring these magenta tones in. Maybe just a smidge. And what we're going to do is just adjust these sliders enough to where you can see those colors really shine through. And I think I always bring the whites back when I'm doing Milky Way stuff because you're dealing with a dark sky. So bring these highlights down. Yeah, I'll bring just the blacks back, just a touch, just to get that darkness in there. All right. So this is about what I would do in Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom. I'm going to go back to this setting here and darken it just a smidge and just lose some data way back there. Pull it back with adjusting the shadows up just a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm just toning it down just ever so slightly. Okay, that is about it from there. I'm just going to kind of globally look at everything. A lot of times we just click over here, get rid of all these masks. You'll notice I got a little clipping in this tree. That's okay. These shadows anyway. I got a little bit of clipping in the deep blacks. Here's another thing you can do. You can go back to masks, and I'm going to just do just a brush. You'll notice there's a sign right here. I don't know how important it is here, but do bring up the exposure on that just a smidgen. Bring up the shadows a little bit. Just make it pop just a smidge, Anybody that lives in the area, so if you're doing something like this, and say this is a local spot that people recognize, you're going to be selling prints of this, you might look for little things like, oh, there's a sign or whatever, and make that part pop, because believe it or not, people really get attached to certain things. There's also signs here that I can bring up if I just use my brush. I don't know if those are that important. I'm just going to tone that down a little bit. Okay. Like I said, we're not going to go crazy. That really doesn't matter, although I know in this area, this bridge is pretty popular. So, okay. So, I think now globally I'm going to adjust the vibrance just a little bit, see if we can make those colors pop. If you look at saturation, I think if you desaturate it a little bit, it'll look a little more natural but a little darker. If you oversaturate it though, it's what I call overbaked. And I just think that the colors start looking very odd. So I would not mess with the saturation. Or if you do, just keep it very subtle. Plus one. Vibrance, though, like I said, it can change the whole tone of the image. Like, you'll notice that as I lose vibrance, you don't lose color. It's still got the color there. It just starts looking very dull. If you go way too hot on the vibrance, it starts looking big. So I am probably going to take the vibrance up to about 10, and I'm going to leave the saturation where it's at. Alright, good. And I'm going to mess with the dehaze, just kind of go back and forth, rock those sliders just a little bit. I think adding a slight dehaze, a negative dehaze, gives a little glowy effect. So I'm going to open this into Photoshop. Alright, don't mind that last picture. It's another project I'm working on. Just close that down. There we go. And we'll move it over here. So what we're going to do now is just look for imperfections that so I'm already seeing some things that I messed up on, and they're pretty easy to fix. But for one, I should have ran the denoise because this is a night picture. Night pictures tend to have a lot more noise. What we're going to do, instead of going back into, well, you could go back into Camera Raw, or you could go into Lightroom if that's your poison. I'm going to go to my knit collection, and I'm going to hit define. This is not as aggressive as what's built into Photoshop, Lightroom, and Camera Raw. But I think for this image it'll work just fine. So you'll notice to the screen over here, it'll just make this area a little cleaner. Any denoise software works. Topaz makes a really good one. There is no right or wrong. There's a little bit of light leak over here. This tone back here, this green tone, I don't know where it's coming from. That is noise there. And so the way I'm going to solve that, I'm actually just going to go to my dodge burn tools. I'm just going to hit burn. I'm going to burn this image in here. I'm actually going to also emphasize some of the structure here. A little bit bigger. I'm going to burn around here. Almost give a, now we're getting that vignette type of feel. I'm going to burn these trees down here because they're actually taken away from the look that I want. I'm just going to go through and just find things that look a little odd to your eye. What's leading you away from the image instead to the image. I'm going to also burn down the center here. And then I'm going to do one more layer. And I'm going to choose kind of a magenta color. Okay, look where the magenta would be. This is a little cheat, just to let you guys know. And it's going to be very, 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 very subtle. So go down to color. I'll take the color down to 20% or so. Just smidgen. I like the little blues that are in there. So what I'm going to do is now take my erase tool, and by putting on color, it only colorizes things that don't have much color in them, but there's something there. So I'm just going to go through here, the top of the blue. You don't want that. You really just want to bring back the colors that are actually there. but unfortunately, especially with night photography, unless you're stacking a bunch of images together and really building those images, you're going to lose the color that even our eyes would see, which a lot of this you don't see unless you take a picture of it, but we're just going to really take this down, make it very, very, very subtle. That's close. Like I said, just barely there. Now I'm going to that there. I just merged that down with the burn layer that I did. Now I'm going to actually take the opacity of that down as well, 60%. See how it darkened up the inside, but it also brought some more color. And you could actually now take your eraser and go over parts of this too, something like that. Now it's starting to look like the Milky Way. What I would probably do, if you have plugins like Nik Collection or Luminar Neo, those are great tools. They're very inexpensive. That can do a lot of stuff for you. Let's just click in Neo. Now, Luminar Neo has some really cool sky enhancement things. Here, we'll go to big city lights. This is just really AI at its finest, because you don't want to learn all the sliders. This will get you a preset, right? You'll notice, right when you're going through these. I actually like this one quite a bit. I really love that sky back. You end up losing this red though, and that's where you're going to have to experiment. I'm going to go back here and see what natural skies is like. This does not look natural. That one's not horrible. Let me see what else I got here. And for that, it's subtle. See how it brings everything up a little bit. It's a little too purple. I think I'm going to go ahead and subtle. I like it. So you could also go to the edit tab here, and you can go to enhance. You'll see that it really brings for the sky enhancer, which is very, very subtle, but it could bring that artificial look down just a little bit. You don't want it to be crazy. It's weird to do that. And then remember I was talking about doing a glow. They have a glow tab here. You click Orton effect. Just bring the slider up. It really gets this glowy type of feel. So I'm just going to hit that. Now, if you don't have Luminar, Neo, or any of their products, that's okay. You could do these exact same things right in Camera Raw. You just have to play the sliders a lot more. This really takes the process and dumbs it down just a little bit. I'm going to actually, the one thing I don't like about Luminar, I'm just going to let them know if they ever watch one of my videos, is they do this on a destructive layer, so it's all right on that layer. I don't like that, so I'm actually going to select all, copy, then I'm going to go back beforehand and get my before, and I'm just going to paste the Luminar version over the top of that. And I actually like to take the opacity down, so it's just one more way to look a little more natural. There we go. I think 70% will do the trick. Now I'll just go ahead and drop it down. Okay, so there's a few things that are bugging me. Back into Camera Raw, which I think we need a couple of fine tuning, so might as well do it this way. So this didn't get burnt down very well, so take a mask. I think actually we'll do a regular gradient and pull up here. I'm just going to bring the exposure down just a bit. Bring shadows down just a bit. You notice I'm getting clipping here. That's okay. You know, I don't need to worry about that. Okay. And I'm going to actually hit add. Do another radio gradient. I'm going to just put it in here because remember all that noise that was in here. And let's go back down to negative haze again. Haze up. I'm also going to take the clarity and the texture down this time. That's good. Now I'm going to do one more linear gradient. We're just going to come down. I don't want it totally black. So take the exposure down a smidge. Highlights down a smidge. Shadows down a smidge. You know, just you get just a little bit of time. Just subtle work there. And you'll notice I have some vignette here, not over here. I want it to look fairly natural, so I'm going to do one more radial gradient. And this is where you're going to follow your light. You got the light coming from here, so I'm just going to somewhere in this part. Now I'm going to reverse it. And it's still too much, so we're going to like this. And that's probably one. And what we're going to do is drop it down just a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're just going to bring that exposure down. Since this is pretty easy to kind of manipulate, you're just going to want to kind of move it around and see what makes sense to you. And again, that looks alright. You know, you could go crazy. I'm just gonna show you a couple things. Like you got kind of a glow here from where the horizon, the sky is. And you get there's probably some city lights over here. You could go and dodge that down a little bit if you wanted to. I'm not gonna bother. I think this is looking pretty good. Okay, so now just take that also down. You know what? We had it at 70. I think we went to down to about 50-ish. And take that down. All right. So at the very end here, what I'd like to do is just see what Adobe thinks. So I'll go to Auto Tone. And I'll look at that, see if I like it. In this case, I do not. But then I'll go to Auto Contrast. Looks like I nailed the contrast. It did not finish. Then I'll hit Auto Color. I usually never like Auto Color, although it looks like it didn't do anything. So looks like we've nailed the colors pretty good. In order to make this a fine art print, what I also do is I usually select everything. I would just add that little border here. Last but not least, so this is for all the people that want to sell prints at some point. You might want to put your signature on it. I have a signature already made for layers. I'm just going to make that Very small, nothing crazy. Photoshop now is pretty cool. It'll literally tell you if you're centered. You don't have to eyeball it or set up guides. It knows. Somewhere here, like this, that line popped up. Alright, I think that's it. Nothing wrong with signing your art. So there you go. I am going to go ahead and flatten this down. Hit save and save. And now we popped up on screen the final version right now. Hope you enjoyed this. This is just a quick little edit of the night sky. Nothing crazy, but if you're selling at your local market and stuff like that, and you find these iconic little places that people are drawn to, great way to make some extra money. Also, this makes great postcards, so on, etc. So that's it. That's your Fine Art Friday, and we hope that you have a good one. All right, guys. Peace.